It's This Week in Charles Bronson, the highly uncalled for news and pop culture program that revolves around one weirdo's obsession with a late action movie star. But that weirdo is me, Eric Todd. And tonight I have a couple other of my Buczynski brothers with me. I got Ryan, the Vossinger of Death Voss, and Chris Manson, who wrote for Mad Magazine. He's a comedian and he is an award-winning cartoonist. Tonight,
Hey,
November
I'm
6th,
also, sir, I'm also a sweater vest model.
and he's a sweater
Right.
vest model. Don't ever interrupt my intro,
I'm sorry.
or you will face vengeance. Look at this idiot, or you will face vengeance. Anyway, tonight it's November 6th, 1987. The number one song is Tiffany's I Think We're Alone Now. And I think some creeps are alone in a underground parking garage with Paul Kersey. Tonight, who is our guest tonight? Our very special guest, Chris Manson.
Thank you, Eric. Our guest tonight, I'm very excited about this. I kind of reached out to him and it finally happened. His film, he is an actor and producer whose film and television credits include The Hanoi Hilton, Platoon Leader, One False Move, which I tried to watch last night, but I fell asleep,
Oh.
Marilyn and Me, Gun Shy, Witless Protection,
Mhm.
Sex House, which I somehow missed, and I would have watched that. Chicago PD, The Golden Girls, the television series Elvis, which I really loved, in which our guest played Scotty Moore,
Thank
and
you.
of course, as one of the casualties of the war on drugs, the late great Randy Viskovich in the immortal classic Death Wish 4, The Crackdown.
Yes, sir.
Our
All
guests
right.
appeared in films and television programs with the likes of Michael Moriarty, Paul Lamette, Fred Olin Ray, Bo Svensson, Julie Newmar, Yaphet Kotto. Really? That's awesome. Michael Dudikoff, Jan Michael Vincent, also awesome. Joel Gray, Bill Paxton, Billy Bob Thornton, Elizabeth Shue. I love you, Elizabeth. Diane Lane, Arlie Ermy, Meatloaf, Larry the Cable Guy, B. Arthur, Betty White, J. Lee Thompson, and of course, the immortal King Charles, Charles Bronson. Will you please welcome Mr. Jesse Dabson?
Thank you.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
That
Thank
was one of the nicest introductions I think I've ever gotten.
We're going to use that as your obituary as well. I hope
No,
it's not soon.
No,
no.
myself as well.
He still looks like a young, he still looks like a young what would you say that character was supposed to be? A yuppie or not a yuppie?
Yeah,
Kind of like
well, I think he was the upper end of the economic echelon in the valley.
yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah, I didn't understand when I was a kid. I remember Bronson looking concerned that you were pulling up, and I kind of like grew up like we all had long hair, and most of my friends smoked cigarettes and stuff. And I seen this
Oh,
guy with a nice car and nice hair. I said, "Why is Bronson concerned about this guy? He looks like
Yeah.
one of them rich kids." But
it
yeah,
was the T-top on the Camaro that concerned him.
yeah.
I like that you drove up to her house for your date and didn't even go to the door. She just had to come to your car.
That's
Oh
the
no,
first thing. That's the first thing I thought, and I was like, Bronson cannot like that. Paul
no.
Kersey, I mean.
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't like that when my daughters were dating. I would force them to come in the house so I could grill them a little bit. Yeah, that was I. It was a concession to we don't need another scene of talking. Let's shoot some more.
Yeah, was that a Canon Films just kind of like
Oh yeah,
cutting
yeah.
to the chase? Now,
Well, at that, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, I was at that point in time. That was the third Canon film that I had done. No, second one. Because I had done the platoon leader the
Hmm.
year before, and then I got this little part in Death Wish 4. And Canon at the time was experiencing some financial difficulties. So I think, if I remember correctly, I don't know, the budget for the film may have been about $5 million, and I think Charles got four of that.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we learned from doing this show. We had Jan Gann Boyd from Assassination on, and
Uh-huh.
that the company was kind of losing money around 86, 87. But as a kid, like I didn't even know that these were B movies until I was an adult, because these were
Oh,
like the
this.
greatest films in the world to me.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
now
You.
when you went in to do this film, was so was Charles Bronson, was that exciting for you? Was it like or was his name kind of like not important to someone at your age? I think you were like 26 when you made the film.
Yeah, I was 20. I would have turned. I think it was in the spring that we did that. It's hard to tell in Southern California because the weather's all the same, but I think it was the spring of that year that we did the film, and I would have turned 26 in November of that year. So yeah, I was 25 anyway. And Dana
Okay.
Barrow was 18, so or 19, something. I mean, she was considerably younger than I was.
I reached out to her and she was very friendly, but she I guess she didn't understand, like I think she thought I wanted to just interview her like for a magazine or something, because she wrote me back and said I'm free in 10 minutes. And I was like, "Oh my God." She's willing to do it, but believe it or not, I have a real job, and I was in the middle of it,
Yeah.
my Charles Bronson podcast does not pay the
Sure.
bills.
What?
working on some kind of she's working on some kind of National Lampoon Vacation project right now.
Oh, is
She
she
is?
another one?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
like
number
she's trying to
three
do
or
a
four.
thing like I don't know something.
He's doing very well. So these autograph things, I remember when they first started coming around, it was a lot like Fred Olen Ray, who directed Alienator,
Oh yeah.
Rudy Ray Moore. You would meet Linnea Quigley, a lot of the B movie people.
Sure.
But now big stars like Chevy Chase and all that, they're doing these autograph signings, and people are paying 100, $200 to get a picture with everybody from National Lampoon's Chris. So she's doing it. I think she's doing real well with that right now.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
Jeffy has to pay his drug dealer, so
Well, and bail because he's kind of a dick.
That's what people say. Now, is
Yeah.
Ryan Vossinger, are you still here? Did we lose Ryan?
Oh, I'm here with you. I'm just listening at the moment.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's how Zoom
Yes,
works. You disappear when you're not.
hey Jeff, I wanted to ask you what was
Yes.
the other Canon film that you did?
Oh, I did. I did the Platoon Leader,
Oh,
not to
right.
be confused with Platoon, and I flew to. That one was actually shot in South Africa.
Huh.
Believe
Oh,
it or
wow.
not.
That was or Chuck Norris's brother directed that one, right?
Aaron, yeah, God bless
Cool.
him. Aaron Norris, batshit crazy. One day, I mean, nice guy. It was a lot of fun working with him. I mean, we had to kind of lay down the law a little bit because Aaron was like, all right, all you actors, get into the helicopter," which was literally a vintage Vietnam era helicopter that had no seats. Because when they transported the troops, they just had in the floor plates they had a hole, and you took your rifle and you stuck it in the hole and you used that to anchor yourself while we're flying around. So they got these Bell 204 helicopters from Manila that were vintage helicopters. Brought them over to South Africa, and Aaron's like, "All right, all you actors, get in the. We're gonna fly up the hill, and then you're gonna jump out of the helicopter and run up the hill." And we're all looking at each other like, "Oh, the fuck we are!" Pardon. And, don't we have stunt people for this? No. We'll just get a quick shot and it'll be. I'm like, I'm not jumping out of a helicopter with a rotor going or hovering over the ground and stuff.
You got a rotor over your head right now.
Yeah. Oh, I do. Sorry, bad camera angle there.
No, that was good. I like the low angle thing.
I'm a big fan of Michael Dudikoff as well. How was he to work with?
Duty.
Yeah, did he have the greatest hair? The greatest hair in
Oh,
Vietnam? I watched that movie the other day. I said, I
oh,
don't
God,
think he'd have that hair in Vietnam.
No, it was like James Dean went, and went to a sandbag entrenchment. Duty was a nice guy. He was Duty was there, what everybody called him and stuff. And he was, let's see, Platoon Leader was the second film that I did. The Hanoi Hilton was the first film that I did, and that was canon as well. So Hanoi Hilton, Platoon Leader, Death Wish 4. So I did 3 in a row for Canon. And that was largely due to a casting director by the name of Perry Bullington, who took a shine for me and brought me in for the Hanoi Hilton. I had one audition. I walked into the first audition, and I was from the theater. I mean, I had a theater degree from college, and I went to Northwestern, did a master's work there and stuff. So, I'm accustomed to interacting with the director. And Perry calls me in for this Hanoi Hilton audition. And I walk around the side of the table, and Lionel Chetwynd's down there at the end. I'm like, "Hey, how are you? This is how I see this. So I think you could go this way." And I do a thing, oh, you can put a little bit more of a spin, and I do it this way. And Lionel's sitting there like, he's a dog in the back window of the car. And I walk out of the audition, and Perry's like, "What the hell are you doing? Jeez, that's not the way you ought to." Oh, man, I just blew my one chance. About 3 days later, Perry called me up, and he says, "No, I don't know how it happened, but you got the part." I'm like, "Sweet." One audition, got his co-starring part in a movie. I'm going to have an Academy Award next year. It's all set.
Did you have any interactions with Menachem Golan or Yoram Globus when you were doing?
I met them years later.
Okay.
Menachem and Yoram were, years later after having done Death Wish 4 and stuff. And I don't remember what the context was, but it was an award show, as I remember. It was some Hollywood sort of deal. It was like 3, 4, 5 years afterwards. Menachem and Yoram used to be Israeli gun runners.
Yeah.
So they made a buttload of money in the Middle East. And in that business, you make a lot of enemies. So they were like, let's take our ill-gotten gains and go to Hollywood and be movie producers. Because that, you sell guns, you make movies, it's fine. And
the American dream.
Oh, I think at their height, they did 18 or 20 movies in 1 year.
Yeah.
It was just, and Chuck Norris was sort of the first big deal that they had,
They were well known for like announcing movies that they didn't even have scripts for yet.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely.
And
I used to read Variety, and they had like a ad saying like Dirty Harry Death Wish with Clint Eastwood and Charles Bronson.
Yeah. They called them poster movies because they'd come up with the poster beforehand. They'd rob art from somewhere, and then they'd run an ad in Variety and stuff like that. And what they would do is they would sell off the rights to the film, the distribution rights to the film, before they ever made the film. And then they would use the money from the distribution deal to make the film.
Fred Olin Ray was known for doing that too, who you worked with.
Oh, Fred? Oh, God.
I actually met Fred a few times in person, and he actually did an old podcast of mine. So I consider him kind of a friend.
Fred,
yeah, he really is a great guy. And there's a great story that he was at one of these showbiz film, I don't know what they call it, where they try to sell their idea. And he was trying to sell something called Teenage Exorcist. And Brink Stevens came up to him and said, "I'd love to be in this." Oh, no, I'm sorry. He went up to her. He said, "Hey, can I tell people you're going to be in this? It would really help me sell it." And she said, "Yeah, sure. Can I write it?" He said, "Sure."
Oh, yeah. Oh, Fred had come up with, the synopsis of the story. And then, good God, when we did Aliener, we actually did it during the writer's strike back then. And so Fred would be like, yeah, here, say this. And we do 3 or 4 or 5 things. In fact, what the hell was her name? Tegan.
Yes. Tegan
was the name of the bodybuilder that was to play the alien. And she was going to be wearing a lot less in the original film because Fred had seen a picture of her, but he never met her in person. And I'm pretty sure he hired her sight unseen. And she shows up on the set. And, as it is wont to happen, bodybuilders that stop working out they don't look the same. So here's this like 6 foot Zoftic, Amazonian bleached blonde. And Fred's like, oh God, what are we gonna do? So that's where the breastplate and the thing and the stuff came from. And he put a wig on her, and she was just tall enough to be menacing.
Wow.
Hey,
Yeah.
Fred is really great. I follow him on Facebook.
I love Fred.
And for the last few years, he's been doing these Christmas movies for television.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a really good book about how to write the perfect Christmas movie script.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm working on mine now.
Perfect.
You want to be?
You may be able to sell it to Fred.
I would love to read that book. When I had him on my old podcast, we tried pitching him a script that me and my friends wrote called Frat House Mummy, thinking that he would just fall over for it. And he said, if it's not about Christmas or puppies, I'm not doing it nowadays. And I was just like,
Oh
oh,
no.
man.
Is he still smoking cigars?
I'm not sure.
Oh my God.
It wasn't a video podcast like
Oh,
this.
we shot that. I mean, they talk about bandit filmmaking now, and you can do it much easier with a iPhone camera or the video cameras that they have now. God, when I did Sex House, we shot every scene with 5 and 6 cameras, because they're the size of a cantaloupe now. When we shot Alienator, I'm pretty sure Fred didn't actually have permission to shoot in that canyon that we were in. So it was run and gun bandit. That whole film was shot in probably 10 days. And on end reels, Gary Graver was he was the cameraman, director of photography. And I think Gary, his claim to fame was he had worked second unit or something on like Citizen Kane. So we're all like, we're gonna, what's that?
No, I'm kidding. I said terrible movie. It's not. It's great.
Yeah. So, we were all excited, and oh my God, we were out, and about midnight-ish it was. Fred kind of looks at his watch and goes, okay, we gotta go. That's a wrap. I'm like,
Quentin Tarantino has a podcast, which is great. He talks about Fred all the time.
Oh yeah. Fred was a freaking master. I mean, for a guy that his great gift was that he was a student of film, and he understood the formulas, and he understood the form, and if you hit something big on page 30, you hit something big on page 60, and by page 90, if you wrap it all up, you get about 75% of a movie, right? The rest of it's just how do you get there? Yeah. And he
would get it done.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. If he did more than 2 takes of a setup, I mean, we were burning film, because he used to shoot. I don't know if it was Gary Graves or who it was, but back in the day, you could go to the film houses and stuff, and you could get what were known as end reels. So there's so many feet in a film canister, right? So a lot of times what would happen would be, the director would have a minute-long scene, and, the cameraman would go, oh, we only got 3 minutes of film. Okay, well, take it off, put a new canister on. So the film houses would sell these end reels, these remnants of film on a spool. Fred bought them by the dozens. So, he had 6 minutes of film for this, and he had 12 minutes of film for that, and he had to change the canister.
Hey, Jess, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I could talk about Fred Olin Ray for hours, because he's one of my obsessions as well.
Oh, I love Bikini Drive-In is a masterpiece.
Any film with bikini. Any film with bikini in the title is very
Hollywood very Chainsaw Hookers. I think that's the one.
That is a good movie, but the lead actor is pretty weak.
Let's let let's let Ryan ask a question. Ryan, do you have a question?
Ryan, you wait.
Yeah. So I watched Alienator just today actually.
Did you really? Oh my God.
Yeah, and it was my first viewing since I was about 9 or 10 years old.
Oh yeah.
I was one of those kids born in the early 80s, so
Uh-huh.
I saw a ton of canon stuff. Oddly, I didn't get really into Charles Bronson until
Right.
recently, but I saw a ton of canon stuff as a kid.
Sure.
And I know Alienator wasn't canon, but it was a movie that popped up on HBO, and I know I watched it. I just
Oh,
didn't
no
have
kidding.
a lot of great memory of it, so I just had to refresh myself for today.
Yeah, yeah. No,
I
it's
like how I watched it a couple of days ago, and as soon as your character pops up, about 10 seconds after you pop up, you do that thing that you would see in the 80s movies. You take your glasses out and put them on. So we all know that you're the smart guy, or you're different, or to separate you
Oh yeah,
from,
oh yeah, yeah.
like, that was character development in the 80s. Like, oh, glasses.
Well, Jesse and I are the smart guys in this room.
There you go.
Now, did you have any did you get to meet Charles Bronson while you were on this set at all of Death
Oh, I
Wish
did.
4?
Yeah, yeah, I did. And I was there, as I remember. I think I worked on that film for 4 days or so. I mean, there was the scenes where we were pulling up to the house, and that was out in the valley, and then there were the scenes down on the pier. That was shot on the Santa Monica Pier down there by the bumper cars, and in that arcade. Pardon me. In that arcade that was there. It was a little seedier down on the Santa Monica Pier back then than it is now. And I I remember, because I'm a little older than you guys. I grew up in the '60s and '70s and stuff, and I remember watching Charles Bronson and Western movies and the Dirty Dozen and stuff like that. So I was not in awe because I was 25 years old and I'm going to acting school and it's easy. But
Jesse, you were in the one scene with him in the hospital when they brought Eric in.
Yeah. He, my general impression of him, he didn't spend a lot of time hanging out after the shooting day. I mean, he was pretty freaking work a day about it. And I remember the first time I met him, I was like, oh my God, I'm scared of him. Because he was fairly taciturn and stuff like that. But I found out later from Perry, he said, well, part of the reason that you were cast was you weren't taller than he was.
I've heard this before.
True story, yeah. I mean, nobody in the film was to be taller than Charles Bronson was. And he was congenial and stuff like that, but it wasn't like we were going to hang out. That partly came, though, from J. Lee Thompson. J. Lee Thompson's, British, and they had a whole sort of different way of working. J. Lee let everything get set up, and then he would come out of his trailer and he'd go, all right, then, give it a go.
Now, one of our listeners, Michael Court, that was one of his questions, is what it was like to work with J. Lee. And I guess he kind of just answered the question, I guess.
Oh my God. I got the best story about J. Lee. I mean, obviously J. Lee was not in his prime at the time.
Right.
But, he'd be in his trailer and he'd come out and he'd go, oh, all right then. Very good. Let's give it
a go. Hey, can I ask you about, since we're talking about Death Wish 4, I think that confrontation scene with you and Jojo Ross is so fucking good. Excuse my language. I mean, I know how canon probably worked, right? Like, you didn't do like a lot of takes.
No.
But you nailed that. It was just so. How many takes did you do of that? And
oh God, this is 35 years ago. It wasn't more than 5, probably.
Yeah, you were just like, hey, I'm gonna call the police. Cops there.
He gave the most passionate performance in the whole movie.
Ryan, you were the most out there.
Oh yeah. Oh, at one point we had done one take. I distinctly remember we did one take, and I was trying to be cool because I'm 25-year-old, actor and Hollywood. And Jay Lee Jay Lee kind of saunters up to me and he goes, "All right, then." He says, "Very good." And I'm people pleaser. I'm like, "So what do you want, Jay Lee?" He goes, "Well, then, perhaps you could try it more angry."
You were
Okay,
pretty
good. All right, yeah. Thanks for that. Well thought out direction. You bet. So that's what he was. God, he was a funny guy. And, I mean, he was. I don't mean to say that he was doddering at the time, but he was older, and he wore the same pair of pants the whole 4 days that I was there, and the zipper was broken on it. So the zipper would, come down on a regular basis and stuff, and there was a aide that would come up to him and say, "Charlie, your fly is down." And pull the fly up and he'd go, "Charlie, your fly is down." And about third time, the kid ran up to him, telling him that his fly was down. He wheels on him and he goes, "My God, you Americans are so preoccupied with your flies."
Hey, Jesse.
Yes, sir.
I also wanted to ask you about, you were on an episode of The Golden Girls, and I had seen it. That was what, your first thing you did, or?
Oh God, no! The very first thing that I ever did was the Hanoi Hilton.
Okay,
I didn't do TV until, that episode of The Golden Girls, probably '88.
Oh, okay.
Who did you play on the Golden Girls?
It was a flashback episode, and I can't remember the character's name right off the top of my head, but I was hired to woo B. Arthur's younger self, so away from Stanley.
Ah, okay.
And my very last line after not successfully doing so is, "Oh, this is going to cost more."
Wow. Hey, you remember that, huh?
Yeah, because I remember B. Arthur was like 6 foot freaking tall. I just had the best time hanging out with Betty White. I mean, she was just phenomenally funny.
Really?
Dry like the Sahara, and she's just like she is now. This sweet older woman, and fuck would come out of her mouth every once in a while, and you would just roll on the floor because it was like your grandma.
My kind of lady.
Well, she's actually dead now, so we don't want to say she's just like she is now. But I'm just kidding.
Wait, what?
Technicality.
She's dead?
She's dead?
Yes, but she had a good run.
She did. Can I also ask you?
Yes.
Your character is not in the film for very long, but
no,
you are crucial in that you get the Kersey killing spree going again.
Oh, absolutely.
And I want to ask you, did you hang out at the set after you were done with all your stuff, or did you just move on to the next thing?
Since most of that was shot on locations and stuff, there wasn't a ton of opportunity to hang out afterwards. And it wasn't like, Charles and I were going out for a beer on the Santa Monica Pier. And as I said, Jay Lee, had a little different style about making a film. I mean, it was much more work-a-day with him. I mean, in the British tradition, the director's kind of in his trailer until everybody gets everything set up and stuff, and then they make the grand entrance and action and all right, cut and back to the trailer and let me know when you got the next one set up. So it wasn't quite as convivial a set as some of the other ones I've done. Billy Bob and I are dear friends, and I mean, we would go out and drink after a day of shooting, and I mean,
Now that you mentioned Billy Bob,
yeah,
Brad Crane, who's actually a listener but also a member of the show a lot of the times, a big contributor and guest host a lot of the times. He wanted to know about working with Billy Bob Thornton, and I'm glad to hear that he's your friend, because I heard he was difficult to work with because of the alcohol, and I guess maybe that's just somebody else's someone
Well,
else's experience with him.
here's the thing. I mean, Billy can be a little bit of a perfectionist. He's got a very strong vision of what it is that he wants. And him and Tom Epperson had written that movie. Oh God, that was before Sling Blade.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was before Sling Blade, yeah.
See, Billy, there used to be back in the day, there would be showcases for casting directors, and you could either prepare a monologue or you could get a partner and do a scene, and then that was in the sort of pay for play days. You could go to these casting workshops and meet casting directors that were in the business and do a scene for them and stuff. And it was a way for a lot of actors to get an exposure to the first level of the film or TV business. And Billy and I belonged to a theater for a period of time. That's where we got to be friends, called the West Coast Ensemble. And he had that Sling Blade character in his pocket for years and stuff. And to the extent that he and I would sit around and riff on, Carl when we were at the theater and stuff. I had my Sling Blade, and some people call it a Kaiser Blade. And it was just a character that he did for auditions and stuff. So where was I going with that? When I got he was doing One False Move, and he goes, his nickname for me was Beaver, and that's a whole other story. He says, Beaver. He says, hey, you got to come be in this. I need somebody to die in this movie. And he says, you're a good dyer. And at the time, I was doing another film at the same time with Jonathan Silverman and Alyssa Milano called, oh Jesus, the name just went out of my head. It was Jonathan Silverman and Alyssa Milano. So I shot that during the day.
One of those classic Alyssa Milano movies.
I would have mentioned her in the intro if I had known.
Yeah, I gotta find out what this was. Go ahead, we'll keep telling your story.
So literally during the day I shot, I played Chaz, the fraternity leader in the thing, and Jonathan was cross-dressing in it. What the heck was the name of that damn thing? Anyway, so I shot that during the day.
Where the Day Takes You?
No.
Little Sister.
Little Sister. Thank you, my friend. God. So I shot Little Sister during the day, and for one night I went up. I got, a scar put on my stomach and a sleeveless shirt, and Billy took great delight in killing me.
How many movies have you died in? You died in Platoon Leader, correct? You
died
in Death Wish 4.
Died in Death Wish 4. Died in One False Move.
Ryan, you watched One False Move recently, correct?
Actually, I did not get to that one yet. That was on the agenda for today, but it slipped past me.
It's a great movie.
I hear nothing but great things about it. I wanted to watch it today, but I couldn't get that Crackle site to work.
I got some Billy Paxton stories from drinking at the Hollywood Hotel.
Oh, nice.
It's funny you should say that, because Keith Fordyce, another listener and good friend of mine, wants to know what it was like working with the great Bill Paxton. A lot of people have great memories of him, and he wants to know if you have some great memories of him.
Oh God, Billy was just a great deal of fun. I mean, just the most genuine guy. One of those guys that if it was a grand plan to be a starring actor in Hollywood, you would never be able to tell, because Billy was just one of them guys where it kind of happened for, and he had a wonderful ranch up in Ojai, and we used to go up there, but God, we used to do some drinking at the Hollywood Hotel up on Hollywood Boulevard, and he was just a lot of fun. Regular guy, I mean, never particularly pretentious about anything. It was real nice for people to come up and say, hey, you're the guy. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I never really thought he looked like like your usual Hollywood star. He kind of looked like the everyday guy. I mean, good looking guy, had movie star looks, but yet at the same time, if I would have seen him somewhere, like, I'm usually either one, don't want to approach people because I don't want to bother them, or two, I'm afraid to approach them because I think they're going to be rude and it's going to break my heart.
Oh yeah.
And then there's people that I just had to meet, like Fred Olin Ray, and
Yeah.
and I think if I saw Bill Paxton somewhere, I would just be like, "Yo, Bill," like I knew him. Do you
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh, you'd get in a car with him. I mean, I had some of the same problem at the risk of sounding pretentious. I mean, I was I was never quite good looking enough to be, that sort of James Deany leading man, but I wasn't quite charactery enough to do, the the straight out third banana funny stuff. Although I had a good
Mm-hmm.
sense of humor, but I could manifest, some emotion and stuff. So, I mean, if you look at the stuff that I did over the years, it was, it was, well, other than Marilyn and Me. Marilyn and Me was an ABC movie of the week, which is the sort of the first time I ever got the girl. I mean,
Yeah,
I got to sleep with Marilyn Monroe.
there you go.
And they got it on film.
Yeah.
um, most of the stuff that I did was, your sort of regular guy, or your, next door neighbor victim, or that kind of stuff.
Speaking of
Yeah.
Marilyn and Me, and speaking of you're talking about your looks and all that. I was thinking about that when I was researching, and I seen you were in Marilyn and Me, and you were Scotty Moore on the
Yeah.
Elvis.
Yes, that was a
And
great.
yes, and when I was growing up, at that time period, I was a teenager in high school. There was this resurgence of interest in Elvis and
Oh
Marilyn
yeah.
Monroe and James Dean.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, like, were you cast in those because do you think do you have like that kind of like all American guy look at the time?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I actually bore some resemblance to Scotty. If you look at pictures, that
yeah.
that three shot of him and Elvis and Bill Black and Sun Studios and stuff. I mean, I I bore some physical resemblance to him. Bill Black bore, a slight resemblance to um, Blake Gibbons, bore a slight resemblance to Bill Black, and I mean it was a consideration in the casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through quite a big kind of rockabilly 50s phase during that time
Oh
too.
yeah,
And I still love that stuff. And I went and saw the Sun Records Christmas thing. What do they call that? The Big Four or whatever. It's supposed to be Jerry Lee
uh-huh.
Lewis.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm there 47 years old. You think I was 75 the way I was geeking out
yeah.
over these people doing Carl Perkins. Like I remember being 16 and
Oh
watching
yeah,
Carl Perkins, and my mom's friend being like,
sure.
"What are you doing watching Carl Perkins? You're 16." I was like, "I don't know." I had this. It was a big resurgence in that stuff. And so
Yeah,
those movies, I remember those movies being a big deal.
yeah.
Hey
And I,
Jesse,
yes, sir.
did you learn to play guitar for that show, or did you?
Here, this is probably the greatest testament to my acting chops. Again, at the risk of sounding pretentious, I I had half a dozen guitar lessons in high school, and of course, being an actor, when the part called for being a guitar player, I went to the very first audition, and they asked me, "Do you play the guitar?" Yes.
Of course.
5 auditions later, I get cast in the freaking thing. I arrive in Memphis, Tennessee, and they hand me this ES 335 Gibson, like 1958 ES 335 Gibson. Hollow body, beautiful freaking guitar, walnut. It was close to what Scotty had. Although his was blonde. Um, and they were like, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? They were like, well, you're going to be playing that in the scenes. Oh,
Did you get to meet Scotty?
what's that?
Did you get to meet Scotty Moore?
Oh yeah, yeah. I met Scotty, hung out with him a fair amount. He wasn't a regular like advisor on the show, but Scotty lived there in Memphis. Well, he actually lived Shelbyville. No, it was right outside of Memphis. So yeah, we went and met him. He signed a guitar for me. I bought an acoustic guitar that he autographed, and we were friends for years after the show.
Ryan, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, Jesse, I was kind of curious.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched you the most in Death Wish 4, and
Yes.
that presents you as kind of like the hip, cool, kind of, kind of preppy type guy with a nice
Yep.
IROC Z car.
Yep.
So I kind of get, you get this impression that, well, the actor's got to be kind of like that in real life to a degree, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of get this feeling that you got this good sense of humor, and I feel like you're more like the character that you would have played in Alienator, or even a touch what I saw in Platoon Leader. A little jokey, a little aw shucks guy. Which performance would you say is closest to who you are in real life?
I always wanted to be Jack Nicholson.
Oh, nice.
And here, to your point, this is a great setup. The best story I have from Death Wish 4, that IROC Z.
Yeah.
At the time, I was driving a 1969 Volkswagen, which was yellow. And I had a bunch of rust spots on it, so I painted them with black primer. So I'm driving around in a freaking car that looks like a German Leopard. And we're on the set, the transportation guy and stuff. I was always good friends with everybody on the crew because I knew where the beer was. And the transportation guy's talking to me after we're shooting one day, and he's asked me what I was doing. I said, "Oh, I got this date tonight." And he looks at me. He looks at my car. "You're not going to try and get laid in that piece of shit, are you?" And I said, well, yeah, that's my car. He walks over to the key box, takes the keys out of the key box to the IROC Z, tosses them to me, and says, "You dent it, you die." I got to take a movie car out on a date.
That is so cool, because here when I have our listener questions, Gary Norris, and I think Gary was trying to be funny. He asked if you got to keep the yellow chick magnet car, were his exact words.
I was going to ask that as well.
I did keep the striped shirt. I had the striped shirt for years after the movie.
You should have saved it.
The striped shirt. I finally wore it out. I had to throw it out.
Can I ask the last listener question? And I don't really understand this question, really.
Okay.
But Jeffrey Spector asked if you were surprised to hear that Danny Trejo was in the movie. I think what he's saying is, years later, when Danny Trejo became a star, maybe were you surprised, like, oh, he was in that movie with me and I didn't even know it? I think that might be what he means.
No, he was a drug dealer then, I think. I mean, there was, Canon Films got half of Hollywood their SAG card, because back in the day, you in order to qualify for the Screen Actors Guild, you had to do Screen Actors Guild work, right? But there was the Taft-Hartley Act waiver for the thing, so you could do one SAG film, and by the time you did a second one, you had to join the union. But in order to join the union, you had to have done SAG work. So, Canon was churning out actors, and that was their big thing. I mean, here, we'll give you minimum wage, essentially, for the movie, but you're going to be qualified to join the Screen Actors Guild. I mean, it was a great deal for hundreds of actors then.
Right. So you had no idea who he was at that time, because he wasn't anybody at the time.
No.
Right.
No. I mean, just, he was a mean-looking guy.
I didn't realize it was him until years later. I mean, until recently, when people started talking about it. I never actually put it together. One of my favorite, I'm going to say bad guy actors, although he didn't always play bad guys, but John P. Ryan. Did you have any interaction with him on the set? Speaking of Jack Nicholson, he had a small part in Five Easy Pieces with Jack.
Yeah, he did. Not that I distinctly remember. Yeah. I mean, again, I was only there for like 4 days. I mean, we shot up in the valley and then down on the pier.
How about Erica, Miss Dana Baron?
Hot young lady. She was cute. She just you know, full of convivial life and stuff like that. But at the time, I think she was like 18 and I was 25. I wasn't going to be tapping that.
Perfect. No, I mean, no, don't do that.
Hey, Jesse.
Maybe about 30,
Yeah.
Hey, Jesse, I just want to let you know, based on you being the guest today, we all got high before this podcast.
Not I, said the boss. I'm a public school teacher.
Yes. And I've been sober for 6.5 years.
Okay. Well,
Chris Manson trying to end my career.
I'm sorry.
There might have been a time in the 80s when I was, when I made a phone call and we'd all had a good time. But
speaking of our careers, so you still act now and then, but would you say like you left Hollywood, I guess, that you're in L, like to maybe have a family and
as I was approaching 40 years old, I had been married and divorced once, and I was just kind of over Hollywood at that point in time because, 40 is like a graveyard for actors. If you're not,
right,
big time. When I was in LA, I mean, I was really fortunate because there was like 36,000 members of the Screen Actors Guild that lived in the LA metro area. And it was like 5% of us that were making our living from acting. And that included me. And that was everybody from Jack Nicholson to me.
Yeah.
So.
And you also played a lot of younger characters. And I guess maybe like when you, like recently, like you were on Empire and things like that. What do you play as an adult when they play? Because I watched Empire once and I didn't like it. So I turned it off.
Now I'm lawyers. I'm, aging dads. I'm, believe it or not, there's sort of a category called active grandparents.
Mm-hmm. Active
yeah. So,
well, you look my age. I know your age, and I know you're older than me. But I think you look the same age. So you look good, or I look bad. I don't know, but I think you look good. I think you look good.
He's a little older than me, and he looks way better than I do.
Yeah. But no, you look great, Chris.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just a final question.
Sure.
Who were some of the actors and directors that were your favorites that you worked with?
My goodness. Let's see. Favorite directors. Lionel Chatwin. I mean, obviously, it was sort of the guy that was my first director, and he was so very passionate about that project that was fantastic. Let me see. And directors, by and large, I mean, all of them have been really good. It's hard to say because all of them have different ways of working. The ones that I found the most frustrating were the ones that, didn't want to engage in a conversation with you about how it should be done. Go faster. Or pick up the pace or something. No, I'm going to talk about let me get to faster by what the character is doing. Some of my favorite John Silverman was just a boatload of fun to work with. He was a good time. Billy Bob, obviously, because we were very dear friends. I had really nice conversations on the Hanoi Hilton with he was an American. No, he was in American Graffiti.
Paul LeMat.
Paul LeMat. Yeah, thank you. Because I had seen American Graffiti and I was like, oh my God,
And Melvin and Howard is great.
Say it again.
Melvin and Howard.
Oh yeah, Melvin and Howard, fantastic movie. Yeah. So I mean, he was a lot of, they were all sort of actors of a different era. I got Jason Begay. I got to tell you, is despite the outward appearance and the voice and the whole thing, really nice guy. I've done PD twice, and both times, I mean, hung out and talked to Begay for, 15, 20 minutes at a time. Yeah, well, he's originally from LA, and it turns out that we actually knew some of the same people, and he was, in Scientology for a little while, and I mean, it was just, what's that?
No. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
No. When you were talking about Danny Trejo, I was going to say Charles Bronson was the only person that ever threw a drink in Danny Trejo's face and lived to tell about it.
Oh,
And he blows up and he's that dummy. Are you aware of that, Jesse? That it's like it's a, what would you call that? An urban? No, it's not urban.
An urban myth?
It's not an urban myth. It's become like a popular meme and everything, that there's a scene where Danny Trejo gets blown up, but it's this dummy because Cannon had like no money left.
Oh no! Oh no! No, they didn't. They were. I think they were buying ammunition from drug dealers and stuff in L.A. Just to that.
No, the John P. Ryan dummy too. That's been popping up a lot.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
yeah. They blow John P. Ryan up at the end, and he's just
Eater left.
and in an assassination, Charles Bronson gets shot off of a dirt bike, and it's obviously like a 30-year-old guy with a fake mustache on.
Sure.
Oh, also in Death Wish 2, when he's fighting with Nirvana in the psychiatric hospital, there's this one part where you can tell it's not Charles Bronson.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's like 10 feet tall.
When I was a kid, they used to always say in every magazine you read that Charles Bronson did his own stunts. And then I realized I read the same thing about Chuck Norris and this guy and that guy. And now lately, I've been reading a lot about Charles Bronson. And not only did he not do a lot of his own stunts, but he didn't like physical exertion. He was in great shape, but he had bad breathing from smoking and stuff. So it's freaking funny that you run around as a kid thinking, had what?
I think he had a couple of bad knees as well.
Oh yeah, he might have, working in the coal mines at 12 and stuff like that.
Well, he was 95 when he did Death Wish 4. The only people that do their own stunts are porn stars.
Yes.
There you go.
Jesse knows about that, right? Sex House.
Porn, right?
That was actually The Onion. The Onion got into video production for a bit. We shot that for 4 days in Chicago.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Michael Dudikoff, speaking of him, he a couple of years ago was doing this like web series where he was like a sergeant, like of some army team hunting zombies. It was this real cheap web series. And I'm surprised because he still looks great. And I think he's got a lot of charisma. But I guess, the career takes a turn, and that's just it for some people, I guess. But he's a really cool guy. He'll talk to you. He'll talk to his fans on Facebook, and he's a real thinking of trying to get him on here, even though he never worked with Bronson. I'm just a big fan. I would love to talk to him.
No, I always thought Tarantino should put him in something because he's always back these guys.
Yeah, and Tarantino's a big Sam Furstenberg fan, evidently. The director.
Thompson as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Rockford area guy, right?
Yep.
Rockford, Illinois.
Cheap trick.
Little bit of ways away from Chicago. I'm a little bit of ways away, but over in Indiana. So the sports fan in me, I don't know if you're a sports guy. I'm curious. Are you a Cubs fan, a Sox fan, or just not really into it?
Grew up in a divided household.
Ooh, one of those.
My grandfather was Southside Irish, so he was a Sox fan, and my other relatives were from the north side, so I ended up going to both of them. And then when I went to Northwestern, I spent more time at Cubs Park than I did down on the south side because it was a little dodgy down there back in the day.
Oh yeah. Yes, it was.
Yes.
Well, we do have to wrap it up soon, but do you want to run and take your 2-minute break? We'll talk about you while you're gone.
Thank you.
Wow, he's great. He's great, isn't he?
Awesome.
He is very cool. We've been so lucky with this program. You know, we'll hopefully, we'll just keep this in the 2-minute break because
I'm glad this happened. I mean, I didn't think it would. I'm gonna reach out to what's her name?
Dana Barron.
Dana Barron.
No, the gal that was in the limousine in Death Wish 4.
Oh wow, yes, that's a good one.
Yeah,
she hopes her boyfriend will drop dead. It's a comedy.
I wish he would just drop dead.
We do need to actually, Chris. We do actually need to do the episode where we actually do talk the movie. So if you would like to be on that, because it's your favorite movie,
I will. I mean, That and Kinjite are my two.
Kenjita is so awesome.
They are both the quintessential like canon video store films. It was like
Tino's favorite is Kinjite.
really, I love that's a great movie. It gets a bad rap because it's so.
Have you read this book?
What is it?
It's Quentin's book. It's Cinema Speculation.
No, I'm gonna have to get it. You know, I emailed him. I don't know if he'll ever do the show, but I emailed him. So
he'll do it. Does he have an email?
I'll give it to you if you want to email him. It's actually his assistant's email, but yeah, it's crazy how this show. When we first started this show, Jesse's back.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think we were going to get any guests.
Really?
And right. Stuff. So one day I go like this. You're going to laugh at this. I looked up director Richard Fleischer, and I thought, Wikipedia says died at age 81. I thought it said he was 81. I thought, oh my God, Richard Fleischer's alive. I emailed him. And it turns out his son emails me back. It's like, my dad's been dead for a while, but I'd like to do it. And my brother-in-law worked side by side with Charles Bronson as an AFI intern on Mr. Majestic. So I got those two guys on, and they knew, and it was really cool because Richard Fleischer is a legendary director. So this is his kid, and plus their grandfather is Max Fleischer. And so then I got a little bit of balls, and I texted. I don't know if you know the actor Juan Fernandez, but he was in Kinjite with Charles Bronson. He always played like a Dominican drug lord or something. And he texted me right back, and he was amazing. And then after that, I was like, hey, now I'm emailing Quentin Tarantino and shit.
Nice.
Like, I got balls now. What were we gonna say, Chris?
No, Eric. Okay, I don't remember.
You said he would do it.
Those damn drugs.
It's those damn
drugs.
Hey, I got one last question.
Yes, sir.
I was like 13 or 14 when I watched this movie. Mm-hmm. And I thought that it was idiotic that your character got right in the drug dealer's face going, read my lips, police, cops. Like, did you question that at all to the director? Like, would he really do this? Or is it just like, I'm getting a paycheck and I'm going, I'm getting my Beetle and grabbing some weed?
I had the opportunity to read the entire script, and I knew exactly what it was intended to be.
Right.
There was like 4 words gunshot, 4 word boom, 4, and I mean, I really didn't have any pretense about it at all. And I was in the scene that kicked it all off. So
yeah, we owe you a lot. As fans.
He was going to retire at that point.
I was, yes.
Any last questions, Ryan?
I noticed you, Jesse, you also got to work with John Philip Law, and quite a bit of screen time with him. I'm a huge Harryhausen geek. He played Sinbad, so I was wondering if you had any good memories or stories about working with John Philip Law.
I remember that night, first day we were there. Again, that was shot during the writers' strike, so I'm not sure we had permits for everything we were doing. But Fred was a master at reusing film from other films and just splicing it in if he needed to do something. In fact, I think some of that stuff from David Carradine. Hey, Junior, how are you?
This is my son. He has to make an appearance in every show.
Nice. How you doing, man?
He's on the video box that's in your room on Death Wish 4.
Hi.
Say something.
Hi.
There you go. That's all you're going to get from him today.
Perfect. John Philip Law, I remember him, from Barbarella.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, what's Jane Fonda like and stuff. And he said, you don't know how many times I get that question. I was like, well, dude, I mean, you were an angel and the thing and the stuff. And yeah, she's fine. Where's craft services?
Jesse, you know what's cool?
Well,
Sorry about that. That was my son.
Okay.
Jesse, you know what was cool though? It's like even though you die like 15 minutes into the movie,
Right.
you were on the poster and the video cover and all
Oh my God. My mother had that poster in the hallway down to the basement of her house until the day she died. And people would come in and she'd go, "That's my son." You know? Oh yeah, in fact, I was on that one in the platoon leader. You can't see my face really, but you can see the reflection in the glasses. The one that's shooting the gun, kind of like down in the left-hand corner. Not on the Hanoi Hilton. I did a bunch of press stuff from Maryland to me, so that kind of was fun. But
Yeah, we had a picture up on the site. You had your shirt off.
oh yeah, me and Susie Griffiths. And let me tell you what, brother, that woman she's been a dear friend of mine since we did that thing. But that was the first. Yeah, that was the first and only love scene I ever shot on film.
Wow.
Me and Marilyn Monroe in bed.
Well, listen,
is that
I
on YouTube or anything? Or
it's on. I found it on either Amazon or Tubi, one of them. I'm about to watch it.
yeah, because I saw that when it came out. I thought it was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I watched all that stuff back then. Like that. Like I said, I had this obsession, and I don't think I was alone. I think it was kind of like there was kind of a resurgence of interest in the 50s and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yep.
But listen, I promised my son, who's 7, that I would light some sparklers and stuff off with him.
Well,
But
you're a good dad.
but Jesse, you have been so gracious with your time. I hope that you'll talk to us again someday. He wants to show you the
Oh, dude, lava dome.
yeah, lava dome fireworks are there.
Nice.
And I hope you'll talk to us again someday. And maybe if you got any pictures laying around that you can autograph for us. Can you guys hear me? I just unplugged my microphone.
Oh, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey,
Autograph pictures laying around. Maybe you can autograph for us, and we'll
sure.
And we'll send you some money. You can send us one or something. But what's next for Jesse Dabson?
Working on it now.
Last thing I did was PD. Of course, we're on strike right at the moment, so that doesn't help. I really don't know, honestly. I mean, I'll be 63 years old in November, and at this point in time, I've sort of been there, done that. I'm certainly not a huge star or anything, but as far as the work goes, if I never get another 2-line part where I go, "Here's your pizza," not gonna hurt my feelings.
I think you could narrate audiobooks. That's like something I'm into, and I think you got a great voice.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Plus, Jan Gann Boyd's doing a lot of voiceover stuff. She was on our episode once.
You could go to work in your pajamas.
There you go. I'm in them now. So.
All right. Well.
All right, my friends.
You've been listening to This Week in Charles Bronson. Our special guest has been Jesse Dabson, Randy from Death Wish 4, and he has been so gracious with his time. And man, we really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Really nice to meet all three of you.
And also my sidekicks Ryan Voss and Chris Manson. Thank you.